The term pelvis is loosely used to describe the region where the trunk and the lower limbs meet. The word pelvis means a basin and it is more correctly applied to the skeleton of the region, the bony pelvis. The bony pelvis is composed of four bones, the two hip bones, the sacrum and the coccyx. The two hip bones articulate with each other anteriorly at the symphysis pubis and with the sacrum posteriorly at the sacroiliac joint. The pelvis is divided into two parts by the pelvic brim, which is formed by the sacral promontory behind, the iliopectineal lines laterally, and the symphysis pubis anteriorly. Above the brim is the false pelvis, greater pelvis, which is the expanded part of the pelvis that forms part of the abdominal cavity. Below the brim is the true pelvis. The true pelvis. The true pelvis is a bowl-shaped structure that contains and protects the lower parts of the intestinal and the urinary tracts, as well as the internal organs of reproduction. The true pelvis has an inlet and outlet and a cavity. The pelvic inlet is bounded posteriorly by the sacral promontory, laterally by the iliopectineal lines, and anteriorly by the symphysis pubis. The pelvic outlet is bounded posteriorly by the coccyx, laterally by the ischial tuberosities, and anteriorly by the pubic arch. Laterally, in addition to the ischial tuberosities, there are the inflexible sacrotuberous and sacrospinous ligaments. These ligaments divide the sciatic notches into the greater and the lesser sciatic foramina. The pelvic cavity lies between the inlet and the outlet. It is a short curved canal with a shallow anterior wall and a much deeper posterior wall. Joints of the pelvis. Sacroiliac joints, symphysis pubis, sacrococcygeal joints. Sacroiliac joint. The sacroiliac joints are very strong synovial joints between the sacrum and the iliac bones. The strong posterior and the interosseous sacroiliac ligaments suspend the sacrum between the two iliac bones. The anterior sacroiliac ligament is thin and is in front of the joint. A small amount of movement is possible at these joints, but their main function is to transmit the weight of the body from the vertebral column to the bony pelvis. Nerve supply. Branches of the sacral plexus supply this area. Symphysis pubis. The symphysis pubis is a cartilaginous joint between the two pubic bones in the medial plane. The articular surfaces are covered by a hyaline cartilage and are connected by a fibrocartilaginous disc. The joint itself is surrounded by ligaments. Almost no movement is possible at this joint. Sacrococcygeal joint. The sacrococcygeal joint is a cartilaginous joint between the sacrum and the coccyx. The cornua of the sacrum and the coccyx are joined by ligaments. A great deal of movement is possible at this joint. Walls of the pelvis. The walls of the pelvis are formed by bones and ligaments that are partly lined with muscles, which in turn are covered with fascia and parietal peritoneum. The pelvis has anterior, posterior, and lateral walls. It also has an inferior wall or floor. Anterior pelvic wall. The anterior pelvic wall is the shallowest wall and is formed by the bodies of the pubic bone, the pubic rami, and symphysis pubis. Posterior pelvic wall. The posterior pelvic wall is extensive and is formed by the sacrum and the coccyx, as well as by the piriformis muscle and their covering fascia. Lateral pelvic wall. The lateral pelvic wall is formed by the hip bone, the obturator membrane, the sacrotuberous and sacrospinous ligaments, and the obturator internus muscle and its covering fascia.